They fear you the moment you stop needing them. That's the secret. The one Machiavelli buried in metaphor because the truth was too dangerous to say plainly. You've been taught that goodness protects you, that loyalty earns loyalty, that playing fair guarantees respect. It doesn't. It guarantees you'll be used. Every moral code you've internalized, every rule you follow to be seen as virtuous, someone else wrote those rules, and they wrote them to control you, not to protect you, to control you. This isn't a lesson in cruelty, it's a lesson in clarity. You're about to learn why the nicest people finish last, why the ones who help the most get respected the least, why your loyalty is seen as weakness and your boundaries are seen as betrayal. And more importantly, you're about to learn how to flip it, how to be the one people respect without question, fear without violence, obey without force. Because power isn't loud, it's silent. And silence, when used correctly, is the loudest weapon you'll ever wield. You've been living by their rules. Now you learn the doctrine they kept hidden. 1. The predator's advantage, reading hidden motives. You think people tell you what they want. They don't. Every word they speak is a calculated move to protect something deeper, fear, weakness, or control. The ones who smile the brightest are often the ones hiding the sharpest blades. I've watched it happen in boardrooms, relationships, and power structures. The person who appears harmless is testing your boundaries. They're measuring how much they can take before you push back. And if you can't see that, you're not reading motives. You're reading scripts they wrote for you. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that survival isn't about trusting what people say. It's about watching what they do when they think no one's looking. Most people operate from hidden intentions. They want approval, but they'll manipulate to get it. They crave respect, but they'll undermine you to feel superior. The predator doesn't listen to the noise. He watches the pattern. When someone compliments you excessively, ask yourself, what do they need? When they offer help unprompted, consider, what power are they trying to establish? The game isn't about being cynical, it's about being awake. You've been taught to assume good intentions. That's a weakness they exploit. Every time you give someone the benefit of the doubt, you hand them a piece of your control. I'm not saying everyone is an enemy. I'm saying everyone has a motive, and most won't tell you what it is. Think about the last time someone made you feel guilty for setting a boundary. That wasn't an accident. That was psychology. They sensed your need for fairness, your fear of being seen as cold, and they weaponized it. The person who can read these hidden motives holds the power. The person who can't becomes the target. Here's what you do. Stop reacting to words. Start tracking behavior. If someone says they respect you but constantly interrupts, dismisses your ideas, or subtly questions your competence, that's the real message. If they claim they care but only show up when they need something, that's the intention. I once worked with someone who praised me publicly but sabotaged me privately. Took me months to see it, because I was listening to the praise, not watching the sabotage. The day I started reading motives instead of believing words, the manipulation stopped. Not because they changed, because I did. The predator sees what others miss. He doesn't need proof. He doesn't need explanations. He sees the micro expressions, the hesitations, the tone shifts. And he knows. You want dominance? Stop assuming people mean well. Start assuming people act in self-interest, then watch for the proof. When you operate from this frame, you're no longer reactive. You're strategic. You anticipate the move before it's made. You set the boundary before it's crossed. And suddenly people don't test you anymore. They sense you're reading them. and that awareness alone creates respect. But respect isn't the end game. Control is. And control begins when you stop believing the mask and start seeing what's underneath it. Most people wear virtue like a costume, and that costume has a purpose you need to decode. 2. The mask of virtue. How morality becomes control. Goodness is a weapon. You've been conditioned to see it as noble, pure, something that elevates the soul. But strip away the philosophy, and you'll find the truth. Morality is the most efficient tool for manipulation. The person who parades their virtue isn't trying to be good. They're trying to control you. They want you to feel guilty when you don't comply. They want you to doubt yourself when you set boundaries. I've seen it everywhere. The friend who says, "I'm just trying to help," when they're really trying to dominate. The partner who uses love to justify suffocation. The colleague who hides ruthlessness behind teamwork. Virtue is the mask. Control is the face beneath it. Machiavelli wrote that appearing moral is more useful than being moral. He wasn't advocating cruelty for its own sake. He was revealing a psychological truth most people refuse to accept. Perception is power. The leader who seems virtuous commands loyalty without earning it. The manipulator who appears selfless disarms you before the attack. Think about the people in your life who always play the victim. They weaponize their weakness. They frame every boundary you set as cruelty, every refusal as betrayal, and you comply because you don't want to seem heartless. That's the trap. Their morality isn't real. It's strategy. And the moment you see it, the spell breaks. You've been taught that being good will protect you. It won't. Goodness without power is just submission dressed in virtue. I'm not telling you to abandon your values. I'm telling you to stop letting others use your values against you. When someone accuses you of being selfish for prioritizing yourself, they're not defending fairness. They're defending their access to you. When someone shames you for being cold because you stop tolerating disrespect, they're not worried about your morality. They're worried about losing control. The mask of virtue works because it triggers guilt, and guilt is the fastest route to dominance. Here's the pattern. Someone violates your boundary. You push back. They don't apologize. They reframe. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're too sensitive, too harsh, too unforgiving. They wrap their manipulation in moral language. I thought we were friends. I was only trying to help. You've changed. What they're really saying is, you were easier to control before. I watched this happen with a family member who used guilt like a scalpel. Every time I said no, I became the villain. Every time I enforced a limit, I was abandoning them. It took years to realize their morality was just a script designed to keep me compliant. Once I stopped performing in their play, the accusations stopped mattering. The mask of virtue creates an illusion of moral high ground. And from that illusion, people justify control. They tell themselves they're protecting you, guiding you, loving you, when really they're tightening the leash. You want freedom. Stop negotiating with their morality. Stop defending your choices to people who weaponize guilt. The moment you recognize that someone's goodness is just a strategy for dominance, you take back power. You stop asking for permission. You stop explaining yourself. And you start operating from a place where respect isn't given. It's commanded. But commanding respect requires something most people fear. It requires you to abandon the need to be liked. And that fear, the fear of rejection, of being seen as cold, of losing approval, is exactly what keeps you trapped. The question isn't whether you're good. The question is, whether you're willing to be feared when goodness no longer serves you. 3. The weakness of being liked. You were never supposed to learn this. The need to be liked is the silent killer of power. It's the invisible chain that keeps you compliant, predictable, and controllable. Every time you adjust your words to avoid conflict, every time you swallow disrespect to keep the peace, you're not being kind, you're being weak. And people sense it. They smell the desperation for approval like blood in water. I've watched people destroy themselves trying to be loved by those who don't even respect them. The irony is brutal. The more you chase likability, the less people value you. The more you compromise yourself for acceptance, the more they take. Being liked isn't power. It's a cage you build with your own hands. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He wrote that it's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Most people read that as cruelty. It's not. It's psychology. Love is conditional. It fluctuates with mood, circumstance, and convenience. Fear is consistent. Respect rooted in fear doesn't disappear when someone's tired of you. It doesn't vanish when you stop performing. The person who needs to be liked bends. The person who commands respect stands still. And that stillness, that refusal to break yourself for acceptance, creates a boundary others can't cross. You think people will abandon you if you stop being agreeable. The truth is worse. They already don't respect you because you are. Here's what happens when you prioritize being liked. You become a mirror. You reflect whatever people want to see. You agree when you want to argue. You smile when you want to walk away. You tolerate disrespect because confrontation might make you the villain. And slowly, without realizing it, you disappear. Your identity becomes a collection of reactions designed to keep others comfortable. I spent years doing this, saying yes when I meant no, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, pretending I didn't notice when people crossed lines. I thought I was being mature. I was being a coward. The day I stopped caring if people liked me was the day they started respecting me. Not because I became cruel, because I became real. The need for approval is rooted in survival psychology. As children, we learned that acceptance equals safety, but you're not a child anymore. And the people you're trying to please aren't protecting you, they're using you. When you need to be liked, you hand others the power to define your worth. You become dependent on their validation, and dependence is manipulation waiting to happen. Think about the last time you did something you didn't want to do just to avoid disappointing someone. That wasn't generosity. That was fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen as difficult. Fear of standing alone. And that fear is the weakness they exploit. The person who doesn't need your approval can't be controlled by it. You want dominance? Stop performing. Stop explaining. Stop seeking permission to exist on your own terms. When someone tries to guilt you into compliance, let them. Don't defend yourself. Don't justify your boundaries. Silence is a sharper weapon than words. I've seen people unravel simply because I didn't react the way they expected. They accused. I stayed silent. They escalated. I stayed still. And eventually they revealed exactly who they were. Manipulators who only had power because I gave it to them. The moment you stop needing to be liked, you stop being a target. But that shift requires something most people can't stomach. It requires you to accept that some people will hate you. Some will call you cold, selfish, difficult. And you have to be okay with that. Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is spending your life as a puppet, dancing for approval that never comes. The alternative is being loved by people who don't even know who you are. And that love is worthless. But walking away from the need to be liked creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum a different force takes root, one that doesn't ask for respect, one that commands it. 4. The psychology of fear and reverence. Fear isn't cruelty, it's clarity. When someone fears you, they're not afraid you'll hurt them. They're afraid you won't tolerate their manipulation. That's the distinction most people miss. Fear, in its truest form, is respect for consequence. It's the understanding that crossing certain boundaries will cost them something they can't afford to lose. You've been taught to avoid being feared because it sounds villainous. But look around. The people who command rooms, who hold power, who aren't tested or disrespected, they all carry an edge. Not aggression, not violence, just the quiet certainty that they will not bend. And that certainty creates a psychological barrier others instinctively respect. Machiavelli called it reverence, the balance between fear and respect. Too much love, and you're exploited. Too much fear, and you're resented. But the person who walks that edge, the one who is neither cruel nor weak, becomes untouchable. Most people fear being disliked more than they fear being disrespected. That's the flaw. When you operate from that place, you train others to walk over you. You become predictable, harmless. And harmless people don't command respect. They invite exploitation. I've watched this in leadership, relationships, even casual interactions. The person who never enforces consequences is the person everyone tests. The boss who threatens but never acts, the partner who forgives betrayal without boundaries, the friend who complains but never leaves. They think they're being patient, they're being weak, and weakness doesn't inspire loyalty, it inspires contempt. Fear, when used strategically, is a deterrent. It's the knowledge that certain actions will trigger a response they can't predict or control, and unpredictability is power. Here's the mechanism. People are wired to assess threat levels. It's survival psychology. When they meet you, they're subconsciously asking, how much can I take before this person pushes back? If the answer is a lot, you've already lost. If the answer is, I don't know, you've created respect. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about being firm. It's about creating a reputation where your boundaries are non-negotiable. I once worked in an environment where people constantly tested limits, interruptions, dismissals, subtle undermining. I didn't react emotionally. I just stopped engaging. When someone interrupted me, I stopped speaking entirely. Silence. When someone dismissed my input, I withdrew my effort. No drama, no explanation, just consequence. Within weeks, the behavior stopped. Not because I threatened anyone, because they learned the cost of disrespect, and that cost was my absence. Fear without cruelty is the only sustainable form of control. Cruelty breeds resentment, resentment breeds rebellion. But fear rooted in fairness, the understanding that actions have consequences, creates order. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about being both loved and feared. The ideal is to be respected enough that people follow willingly, but feared enough that they never consider crossing you. Think about the leaders you've encountered. The ones who inspired genuine respect weren't the nicest. They were the most consistent. They rewarded loyalty and punished betrayal without hesitation. They didn't need to yell. They didn't need to intimidate. They just had a line no one dared cross. And everyone knew where that line was because it never moved. You want reverence? Stop fearing their fear. Stop apologizing for having standards. When you enforce a boundary, people will call you cold. Let them. When you remove access to someone who disrespected you, they'll call you unforgiving. Let them. The language of manipulation always frames your strength as your flaw. But you're not cold, you're clear, you're not unforgiving, you're selective. And that selectivity is what creates respect. I've lost people by refusing to tolerate disrespect, and every single time what I lost wasn't worth keeping. The person who fears losing you respects you. The person who assumes you'll always stay doesn't. Fear isn't about making people cower. It's about making them think twice. And when people think twice before testing you, you've already won. But fear alone is hollow. It creates distance without depth. And distance, while protective, doesn't build anything. That's why the final element isn't fear or love. It's control over who receives which. Because power isn't in how many people fear you. It's in who you choose to protect and who you choose to destroy. 5. The art of selective mercy. Mercy isn't weakness, but mercy given to everyone becomes it. The person who forgives indiscriminately, who offers second chances like currency, isn't compassionate. They're desperate. They're afraid of being seen as harsh, afraid of standing alone, afraid of making the choice that separates the loyal from the parasitic. Machiavelli understood this with surgical precision. He wrote that cruelty, when used well, is a single decisive act that prevents greater suffering later. Mercy, when misused, is a slow bleed that encourages betrayal. You think being merciful makes you noble. It doesn't. It makes you predictable, and predictable people get used. The art isn't in being merciful to all. It's in being merciless to most and merciful to the few who've earned it. That selectivity is what creates power. That's what separates dominance from delusion. Every time you forgive someone who hasn't changed, you teach them your boundaries are negotiable. You show them that consequence is conditional, that respect is optional. I've seen people forgive the same betrayal 5, 6, 7 times, each time believing it would be different. It never is. Because the person who faced no real cost the first time learned a lesson you didn't intend to teach. You'll tolerate anything. This isn't about holding grudges. It's about recognizing patterns. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Not their words, their actions, not their apologies, their choices. The person who disrespects you once might deserve understanding. The person who does it twice is testing your resolve. The person who does it 3 times knows you won't do anything about it. And at that point, mercy isn't kindness. It's complicity in your own destruction. Here's what selective mercy looks like in practice. You have someone in your life who consistently drains you, emotionally, mentally, financially. They come to you only when they need something. They make promises they never keep. They apologize, but the behavior repeats. Most people stay because they don't want to seem cold. They give mercy again, and again, and again, until they're hollow. I've done this. I've given chances to people who didn't deserve them because I wanted to believe I was being the bigger person. I wasn't. I was being the easier target. The day I started withdrawing mercy from people who proved they didn't value it, everything shifted. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain. I just stopped being available, stopped answering, stopped engaging. And the ones who noticed, the ones who actually cared, adjusted. The rest disappeared. And that disappearance wasn't a loss, it was a filter. Selective mercy requires something most people lack: the ability to detach emotion from decision. You can care about someone and still remove them from your life. You can wish them well and still refuse to carry their weight. This is where manipulation dies. The manipulator relies on your empathy. They know you'll feel guilty. They know you'll question whether you're being too harsh, and they weaponize that doubt. But guilt is only effective if you believe it. The moment you recognize that protecting yourself isn't cruelty, the guilt loses its grip. I once cut off a relationship that had been significant. The person accused me of being heartless, said I'd changed, that I wasn't the person they knew. They were right. I wasn't, because the person they knew was someone who tolerated disrespect out of fear, and I'd outgrown that version of myself. Selective mercy means being willing to be the villain in someone else's story, if it means being whole in your own. Machiavelli's doctrine wasn't about being loved or feared in isolation. It was about strategic allocation of both. You show mercy to those who demonstrate loyalty, who respect boundaries, who reciprocate value. You show ruthlessness to those who exploit, who manipulate, who take without offering. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the refusal to waste your energy on people who've proven they don't deserve it. Think of it like this: your time, your effort, your mercy. These are finite resources. Every moment you spend on someone who doesn't value you is a moment stolen from someone who does. Or worse, stolen from yourself. The person who practices selective mercy doesn't feel guilty about cutting people off. They feel powerful, because they've reclaimed control over who gets access to them, and that control, that ability to decide who stays and who goes based on merit rather than sentiment, is the final move. It's the shift from being reactive to being sovereign. You're no longer hoping people will treat you right. You're enforcing it. And enforcement doesn't require explanation. It requires action. Cold, calculated, final. 6. The invisible war of perception power isn't physical. It never was. The real battlefield exists in the space between what people see and what they believe. You control that space. You control everything. Most people think dominance is about force, volume, presence. It's not. It's about narrative. It's about shaping how others perceive you before they even interact with you. Machiavelli knew this. He understood that the prince who appears strong is strong, regardless of the reality beneath. Perception creates reality. The person who looks unshakable becomes unshakable because no one tests them. The person who projects weakness invites attack even if they're capable of defense. You've been fighting the wrong war. You've been trying to prove your worth through action when you should have been controlling the story people tell themselves about you before you ever enter the room. Every interaction is a negotiation of perception. The way you dress, the way you speak, the way you hold silence. All of it feeds into a psychological profile others are building of you in real time. And they're not doing it consciously. It's survival instinct. They're asking, is this person a threat, an ally, a resource, a target? Your job isn't to answer that question honestly, it's to answer it strategically. I've watched people with average skills rise to power simply because they mastered image. They walked like they owned the room. They spoke with certainty even when uncertain. They controlled the narrative. Meanwhile, more capable people stayed invisible because they didn't understand the game. Competence without perception is invisibility. Perception without competence is influence. And influence, not skill, is what moves the world. Here's the mechanism. People don't have time to verify everything, so they rely on shortcuts, heuristics. If you look confident, they assume you're competent. If you look weak, they assume you're vulnerable. It doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is the image. This is why first impressions are warfare. You have seconds to establish dominance or submit to theirs. And once that perception sets, it's nearly impossible to reverse. I once entered a high-stakes negotiation underprepared. I knew it. They probably knew it. But I controlled the frame. I spoke less. I made them wait. I never apologized for my position. And by the end, they treated me like I had leverage I didn't actually have. That's the invisible war. The battle isn't won with facts, it's won with framing. You want to dominate perception? Stop trying to be liked, start being memorable. Likability is vanilla. It's safe. It disappears the moment you leave. Memorable is dangerous. It lingers. It makes people think about you when you're not there. And that mental real estate is power. Think about the people you remember. They're not the agreeable ones. They're the ones who made you feel something. Respect, fear, curiosity, discomfort. Emotion is the carrier wave of memory. If you don't trigger emotion, you don't exist. I've tested this everywhere. In meetings, I started speaking less, but with more weight. I stopped filling silence. I let tension sit. And people started listening differently. Not because I said anything profound, because I controlled the emotional frequency of the room. Silence became authority. Stillness became dominance. And none of it required me to do more. It required me to do less, but with precision. The invisible war is fought in subtleties. The way you respond to disrespect, the way you handle rejection, the way you carry yourself after failure. People are always watching, and they're building a file on you. Every time you react emotionally, you lose ground. Every time you stay composed under pressure, you gain it. This is why stoicism is a weapon. Not because it makes you emotionless, because it makes you unreadable, and the unreadable are feared because people can't predict them. Predictability is weakness. Mystery is power. I've had people tell me they were afraid to approach me, not because I was hostile, because they couldn't figure me out. They didn't know if I'd help them or destroy them, and that uncertainty kept them respectful. That's the goal, not to be loved, not to be feared, to be unknown, to exist as a question mark in their minds, because questions create hesitation, and hesitation creates control, but perception is only half the equation. Once you've shaped how they see you, the next step is testing whether that perception translates to loyalty. Because image without allegiance is just theater, and theater doesn't survive betrayal. 7. How power tests loyalty. Power doesn't reveal character, it reveals what was always there. The moment you gain any form of dominance, status, wealth, influence, respect, you'll see who people really are. Not because power corrupts them, because power removes their need to pretend. When you had nothing, they were kind because they had nothing to gain from cruelty. When you rise, their masks fall. Some will celebrate you, most will resent you, and a few will betray you while smiling in your face. This is the test Machiavelli warned about. Power doesn't create enemies, it exposes them. The people who stood beside you when you were weak aren't guaranteed to stand beside you when you're strong. Because loyalty isn't about proximity, it's about psychology. And psychology shifts when the balance of power changes. You think you know who's loyal. You don't. Not until you have something worth taking. Every alliance is transactional until proven otherwise. People align with you because you offer value, emotional, social, financial, strategic. That's not loyalty, that's exchange. True loyalty only emerges when staying costs them something, when supporting you puts them at risk, when defending you offers no benefit. I've seen friendships dissolve the moment one person succeeded, not because of arrogance, because the other person couldn't handle the shift in dynamic. They were comfortable when you were equal. They were threatened when you rose. That discomfort is rooted in control. When you were struggling, they could offer advice, provide comfort, feel superior. When you succeeded, they lost that role. And losing that role felt like losing power, so they sabotage. Subtly. A comment here, a rumor there. Anything to restore the balance they're comfortable with. That's not disloyalty. That's ego protection. And ego always chooses survival over allegiance. Here's how you test loyalty without announcing it. You create small moments of choice. You ask for something inconvenient. You set a boundary that challenges their comfort. You stop being as available, and you watch. The loyal adjust. They respect the boundary. They show up when it's inconvenient. They defend you when you're not in the room. The disloyal complain. They guilt you. They start distancing themselves, or worse, they start positioning themselves against you. I did this once with a business partner. I stopped being the accommodating one. I started enforcing terms we'd agreed on, but never followed. Within weeks, the resentment surfaced. Passive-aggressive comments, missed deadlines, subtle blame shifting. They were loyal to the version of me that made their life easier. Not to me. The partnership ended, and in hindsight, it should have ended sooner. Because loyalty that's conditional on your compliance isn't loyalty. It's manipulation dressed as alliance. Machiavelli understood that betrayal is inevitable when power shifts. That's why he advised keeping allies close, but never trusting them completely. Not out of paranoia, out of realism. People act in self-interest. Always. Even the ones who claim they don't. Loyalty is just self-interest, aligned with your success. The moment their interest diverges, loyalty evaporates. This doesn't make people evil, it makes them human, and understanding that removes the sting of betrayal. You stop taking it personally, you start seeing it as data. When someone betrays you, they're not revealing a flaw in you, they're revealing their threshold, the point at which their fear, greed, or ego outweighed their allegiance. And that threshold was always there. You just didn't have enough power to expose it yet. Now you do. And now you know. You want to build real loyalty? Don't reward everyone the same. Reward those who've proven themselves in moments that mattered. The ones who stayed when leaving was easier. The ones who told you the truth when lying was safer. The ones who defended you when it cost them social capital. Everyone else gets distance, not cruelty, just space. Because your energy is finite, and wasting it on people who only stay when it's convenient is a slow surrender of power. I've restructured entire networks this way. I stopped being available to everyone. I stopped giving my time equally. And the ones who stayed, the ones who actually valued the relationship, became my core. The rest faded. And that fading wasn't loss. It was clarity. Loyalty isn't built through generosity, it's built through selection. You choose who gets access, you choose who gets trust, and you base that choice on behavior, not promises. Because words are tools of manipulation. Actions are evidence of intent. And intent, once revealed, is the only metric that matters. But loyalty without internal strength is just dependence. And dependence makes you reactive, fragile, easy to break. That's why the final battlefield isn't external, it's within. Because the person who can't master themselves will never master others. 8. The inner throne. Mastering the self before others. You can't control others if you can't control yourself. That's the truth no one wants to hear. Every external failure traces back to an internal collapse. You lose your temper, you lose respect. You chase validation, you lose power. You react emotionally, you lose the frame. Machiavelli wrote about the prince who must master fortune. But fortune isn't fate. It's the chaos of emotion, impulse, and weakness that lives inside you. The person who can't sit with discomfort will always be controlled by those who can. The person who needs immediate gratification will always be outmaneuvered by those willing to wait. Your mind is the throne, and if you don't occupy it with discipline, someone else will occupy it with manipulation. This isn't philosophy, it's survival. The war for dominance begins in the space between stimulus and response, and most people lose that war before it even starts. Self-mastery isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about refusing to be ruled by it. You feel anger. You don't act on it immediately. You feel fear. You don't let it dictate your decisions. You feel desire. You don't let it compromise your position. Stoicism teaches this with brutal clarity. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while reminding himself daily that his thoughts and reactions were the only things he truly controlled. Not the betrayals, not the wars, not the losses, just his response. That's the edge. The person who controls their internal state controls the interaction. I've been in situations where I was furious, where every instinct screamed to react, but I stayed silent. I let the emotion pass through me without acting on it, and that silence, that refusal to break, became the most powerful move I could have made, because the other person expected a reaction, and when they didn't get it, they lost their leverage. Here's where most people fail. They think self-mastery means being calm all the time. It doesn't. It means choosing when to be calm and when to unleash force. It's the ability to access rage without being consumed by it, to feel fear without freezing, to recognize manipulation without reacting defensively. This is emotional intelligence weaponized, not for empathy, for control. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. They said something designed to trigger a reaction. If you reacted, they won. If you stayed composed, they lost. That's the test. Every provocation is a test of your internal dominance, and every time you fail that test, you hand them power. I've watched people destroy their own credibility in seconds because they couldn't control their emotion. They lashed out. They defended themselves desperately. They proved they could be manipulated, and once you prove that it's over, you've shown them the button, and they'll press it whenever they need to destabilize you. Self-mastery also means eliminating dependency. Dependency on approval. Dependency on comfort. Dependency on certainty. Every dependency is a weakness someone can exploit. You need validation? They withhold it and watch you crumble. You need comfort? They create discomfort and watch you comply. You need certainty? They create chaos and watch you beg for stability. The sovereign individual depends on nothing external, not because they're invincible, because they've trained themselves to endure without support. I've practiced this deliberately. I've removed comforts to build tolerance for discomfort. Cold showers, fasting, silence, solitude. Not because I enjoy suffering, because I refuse to be controlled by the absence of comfort. When you can sit with hunger, cold, loneliness, boredom, you become immune to manipulation through deprivation, and that immunity is freedom. Machiavelli's secret doctrine wasn't just about controlling others. It was about becoming the kind of person who can't be controlled. The prince who masters himself first is the prince who survives betrayal, loss, and chaos, because his power isn't dependent on external conditions. It's rooted in internal sovereignty. You want dominance? Start with discipline. Wake up when you don't want to. Do the work when it's uncomfortable. Say no when saying yes is easier. Sit with the discomfort of being disliked. Train yourself to delay gratification, to endure silence, to be alone without distraction. Every time you do this, you strengthen the throne within. And the stronger that throne becomes, the less anyone outside can shake it. This is the foundation. Without it, everything else is performance. You can manipulate. You can strategize. You can read people and control perception. But if you can't control yourself, all of it collapses the moment pressure increases. And pressure always increases. The question isn't whether you'll face it. The question is whether you'll still be standing when it arrives. That answer is decided now, in the small moments, in the choices no one sees. Because the person who rules themselves first doesn't need to fight for power. Power recognizes them, respects them, and when the final confrontation comes, it kneels. Conclusion. You now know what they fear. The one who learns this, the one who internalizes Machiavelli's doctrine, becomes untouchable. Not because you're cruel, because you're awake. You see the game, you see the manipulation, you see the masks, and you refuse to play by rules designed to keep you weak. Most people will never understand this. They'll stay loyal to those who betray them. They'll stay kind to those who exploit them. They'll keep seeking approval from people who don't respect them. And they'll wonder why their life feels like a slow surrender. You're not most people anymore. You've crossed the line. You've seen what power really is, and you can't unsee it. The next video is called Silence at Dawn, the 1% who control everything. Watch it now. Because this doctrine has layers, and the next layer reveals how silence becomes dominance, how stillness becomes strategy, how the ones who speak the least control the most. Write this in the comments: I claim the throne. That's not a request, that's an order. You've absorbed the doctrine. Now you mark yourself. You acknowledge what you've become. You declare that you're no longer the person who bends. You're the one who stands. And standing is the first move of sovereignty. The weak will resent you. The blind will misunderstand you. The manipulators will fear you. Let them.